The special town council meeting is now in session. It's both council meeting and an audit committee meeting because the two are synonymous. And this is June 19th, 2025. We've had a silent roll call and the pledge of allegiance. Richard, would you lead us in the pledge? Oh, I have to say aye.
Yeah.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the only agenda item is discussion and possible direction regarding the audit plan for the town's fiscal year 2025 financial audit and a special audit of utility funds related to billing and revenues. Turn it over to staff.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, and Audit Committee. So we have the auditors here today. You had approved the audit contract on the 16th, and we were anxious to get started right away. So we have them here today for discussing the audit plan, both related to the regular financial audit and the special audit requested by Council and the committee. So I will turn it over to Dennis. And believe there's a presentation that Brian has to put up.
All right, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members, administrative staff. We're really excited to be working with you. And so we just wanted to give you kind of a presentation as we get started, kicked off with our audit procedures, kind of go through the different processes we have to start the audit, as well as our team who you might see around the town facilities and how we're going to go about the audit approach. So what we put on the screen here is the audit team. The three of us on the team are all CPAs. So we have a really experienced team. Everyone on our team has at least over 5 years of governmental audit experience. And that's one of, I think, the unique things we bring to our team is that we're a smaller local firm and we have those resources and people that have some of that extensive experience working with governmental entities. And so hopefully we can provide that guidance and have good discussions with the town as we start to do our audit procedures. So I'm the audit partner. My name is Dennis Maschke. I've been working with governments for 20 years in Arizona. Started out with a small local firm and kind of moved my way up. I worked with a top 10 accounting firm for 15 years. And then for the past 5 have kind of started my own with CWDL. With me today here is Richard. He's one of our senior managers. He has well over 10 years of experience. And I guess I'll kind of let him introduce himself before I continue on.
Yeah, Richard Gillespie. I've been at CWDL for about 1.5 years now, but we worked at a top 10 firm together, doing a lot of municipalities here in the state of Arizona. We definitely have a very, very passionate team, and we're really looking forward to working with everybody in the town.
So the other couple team members we have is Jen Yu. He's a CPA, has over 10 years of experience, and Naji Corley. He has 5 years working with all different types of municipal governments as well. So these are the team members that are going to be around the town working with the staff. We might have one other person with us as part of the team, but that's our core team. I wanted to talk a little bit about the timeline of an audit. So we start with our communication with the audit committee and council. And then soon after this, we'll start planning our preliminary audit procedures. And what we'll do at that time is we're going to look at internal controls, making sure we get a good understanding of the controls before we get the final numbers after the end of the year and we start testing those account balances. So this is the time where we're testing internal control procedures, doing our walkthroughs of processes. This is also the time where we'll start any type of special audits or procedures that we're going to end up doing as part of the work that we do. And so that preliminary work will happen in June through August as we're kind of getting an understanding of the controls. And then in October, after the end of the year is closed out, all your closing entries are done, we'll start testing the account balances, capital assets, testing revenues and expenditures, and doing more of our substantive audit procedures. As you're probably familiar with, the drafts, will get those done in November, early December, so that they can be done by the end of December and be filed for the award with GFOA. And then again, we'll present to council the audit results when that's all done. And I'll let Richard talk a little bit about the responsibilities as it relates to, what are the auditor responsibilities and what are management's responsibilities and how we handle that as part of the audit.
Yeah, and these different responsibilities are crucial to maintain our independence with management in the town. So within our responsibilities, it includes expressing an opinion as to whether the town's financial statements are materially are fairly presented in all material aspects and conformity with U.S. generally accepted accounting principles. Basically, making sure the financial statements are fairly presented from a materiality aspect. Also, with that, we also test controls over the town's key processes. And during that, we identify any possible material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, and we'll report that in what we call a Yellow Book report or the Government Auditing Standards report. And with that, we don't give an opinion on the town's internal controls. However, we do assess all the controls, the key controls and process of the town. And if we identify anything that might be significant or material, that'll be within our report that we'll communicate to you all at the end. And then as far as management's responsibilities, they're in charge of designing these controls, implementing, establishing, and maintaining these controls relevant to the preparation of the financial statements. And that's kind of what keeps us independent. We're kind of assessing these controls. We're not, telling them what to do. So we'll make recommendations, but that's different between like basically creating the controls for them. So management's responsibility is to basically design and implement those internal controls over financial reporting, as including following laws and regulations, and ensuring that there is reasonable assurance that the town's programs are administered in compliance with requirements. And then also ensuring that management and financial information is reliable and properly reported. That means basically anything we get from the town, basically they're basically saying that, hey, this is accurate information. There's no false information within that. And then there's also other responsibilities that will be included in the engagement letter. There's a long list of these, so I kind of just summarize these right here. So.
And one of the things we will help the town out with is compiling the financial statements. So we're not, making management decisions, but we're helping take those schedules, putting them together and compiling what we call the financial statements, the ACFR that gets submitted. So the other thing is that we provide reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance, right? So a lot of the things we're doing on a test basis, and we're looking at things on a materiality level. So we can't test every single transaction. That would be, a limitless, unlimited audit you'd have to spend to be able to test every single transaction. So we use sampling forms and guidance as to how much we can test to give that opinion on an account balance.
So Dennis stole a little bit of my thunder right there. So as far as our risk-based approach, what he was kind of getting at is we can't give absolute assurance. We're not out here every day testing every single transaction. What we do is basically we'll design our audit procedures around those areas that are of higher risk. This includes maybe key processes where there's a lot of transactions that flow within an account or just account balance, which means basically maybe it might be a year-end transaction, kind of reconciliation that they post at year-end, but we'll kind of test that substantively, which includes kind of going into that large balances and transactions, areas more susceptible to fraud. So we'll be digging into a lot of the cash receipting processes of the town, AP disbursements, procurement, a lot of the processes that's every day that, are basically everyday type stuff, but also if controls aren't implemented properly, it could be an opportunity for fraud. So a lot of the findings, if we do find findings, sometimes it might seem, oh, there could be fraud. It's really more, there's probably redundant controls that will, on top of that, kind of, keep it from committing fraud. But anyway, so then also, any items requiring significant disclosure, the pension liability requires pages and pages of disclosure. So that's usually one of those higher risk areas to where we'll basically make sure that all the disclosures within that balance are accurate to our readers of the financial statements can accurately depict, what the balance is actually comprised of. And then also, whenever we do our internal control assessment here during preliminary procedures, there might be some risks we might identify just inherently. It doesn't necessarily mean the town isn't doing a good job, but sometimes there's some processes that are just inherently for a government, a little risky. As far as capital assets, sometimes the number of activity within, it's not necessarily the account balance, but also like if you miss a $5,000 asset or a $10,000 asset, sometimes just the number of transactions that flow within that account class. sometimes that can, you know, kind of raise a little higher risk, not necessarily that the town isn't doing a good job, but just inherently, you know, it's sometimes difficult to kind of identify. So, and then lastly, we're required to implement a rotation of audit procedures. So first year, basically everything will be kind of unpredictable, but by the second, third year of our contract, each year we'll kind of be digging into different areas of the town that we didn't do that prior year. You know, whether there's might be a cash receipt process that might not be material, but maybe it's, you know, significant enough for maybe that next year we'll do some procedures just to kind of keep the town on its toes, just to where basically it's not the same test every year. You know, we'll kind of keep the finance department on their toes a little bit. So. All right, and then so for the plan for the preliminary work, this is scheduled I think the first 2 weeks of July, kind of overlapping. So the first thing is we evaluate the significant internal control processes of the town. This includes the information technology area. Nowadays, it's, you know, we're kind of living in a digital world where sometimes the IT controls are very important with capturing financial information. So that's one of the key things we'll be looking at preliminarily. And then also we'll be talking with town personnel over key processes. For a first year audit, this is the most important, kind of establishing those key contacts and really going through a lot of these processes with the town to make sure you know, we have a full understanding of the town, and we can you know, test the town's transactions and understand the controls to our best of our ability. So, and then lastly, we'll do walkthroughs and testing of these internal controls. You know, it's kind of the IT part, the discussion part, and then kind of the testing of those controls to make sure whatever the town's telling us is actually being implemented. And then a required audit procedure as well as the fraud inquiries. So we're required to discuss with at least one member of council regarding kind of a list of questions that we have to ask. You know, so if we ever ask you, hey, we have a fraud discussion, it doesn't mean, hey, there's fraud. It just means, hey, this is part of our required communications with you all. And then also we'll talk to the town manager, finance director, as well as the accounting manager. And these are just required inquiries. We kind of have a list of questions, you know, whether there's rumors of fraud, actual fraud, as well as just kind of fraud controls as well. So, and then also because this is the first year, you know, we'll start, because we do, what as Dennis mentioned, we do draft the financial statements. You know, I know Sherry, has a lot of experience with review of financial statements, but so we're going to try to kick that off early and kind of start basically doing kind of a template of the financial statements that kind of, you know, flows in from last year to where we kind of have a really good template to go off of, just to where we're not doing that in November whenever we're trying to issue the report. We're going to try to get a lot of that stuff done preliminarily, you know, to have a good template draft of the financial statements, to where then once October, November comes, whenever we're testing these year-end balances, drafting the financial statements, it should be a really seamless process as far as, you know, drafting to finalization. So, and then also there's a key GASB accounting standard that's going into place this year regarding GASB 101. It's basically compensated absences, accrued leave. So there's some little tweaks and estimates the town will have to do to kind of, you know, implement that standard. So that'll be something we'll kind of get on top of here in the preliminary phases rather than, you know, there in October. And then lastly, once we do all of our preliminary procedures, you know, we'll have an exit conference. We'll meet with management, kind of go over the preliminary findings, kind of where we're at. And then sometimes we may adjust our audit plan a little bit. Maybe we dig into, or maybe there might be something we realize at the end, hey, we might need to assess this area as well. And then sometimes we might have to kind of update, adapt, and then maybe complete some of that stuff at final. So.
And one last thing, we were told by management this year there wouldn't be a single audit. So anytime you have over $750,000 of federal expenditures, we would need to do what's called a single audit report over those federal expenditures. This year, we don't think you're going to meet that threshold, so that report will not be necessary. But if it ever is in the future, if you get a certain federal grant, this is the time where we'd be assessing those federal controls and compliance testing, is more so in our summer, our preliminary field work.
Then final field work, although it is a lot of hours, it's really more summarized. You know, usually that prelim process where a lot of the samples come in, you know, the testing controls, and then the final field work scheduled for October 2025. This is where we really dig into those year-end balances. You know, we'll be testing the revenues, expenditures, cash, receivables, capital assets, accounts payable, revenues, expenditures, interfund transactions, and really kind of getting into the nitty-gritty as far as what will be presented in the financial statements. So, and then, after we're done, testing all these significant areas, which we consider significant, based on our risk assessment during a lot of the procedures during prelim, then we'll draft the key deliverables, which will be the ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, the Highway User Revenue Report, the Annual Expenditure Limitation Report, and it probably won't be applicable to this year, but the Single Audit Report. All right, so those is basically kind of our traditional audit procedures. For each year. This year, as part of the RFP, we're also doing a special audit of the utility funds and related billing and revenues. So this is kind of considered an agreed upon procedure, kind of outside of the scope of the financial statement audit. So we're still kind of talking with Sherry to kind of really dig in. We really haven't started digging in yet. We just, were awarded the proposal 3 weeks ago. But as far as our preliminary plan, we're going to do that in July 2025, or here in a couple weeks. So with that, kind of our preliminary plan is we're going to evaluate the town's current process in determining budgeted utility revenues for each fiscal year. I believe we have to go back to, I think, fiscal year 21 through 25, I believe. I forget the exact fiscal years, but
Did 22.
Start with 22. Okay, so fiscal year 2022 through 2025. We'll do a lot of these procedures will probably update as we really start digging in. But we'll be comparing the budget process with the most recent rate study conducted by the town to determine correlations of rate increases with budgeted calculations. And then also we'll be evaluating the town's internal controls over the billing and cash collection process, including the recognition of revenues in Cassell. Which part of this would be what we would be doing just in kind of our regular procedures, but with this special audit, we'll be kind of digging in a little bit more as well as past fiscal years. And then also we'll be performing testing by deploying data analysis and detailed testing, determine any potential errors in the billing or collection process. This will include evaluating the town's policy on past due accounts as well. All right, and that concludes our presentation. I'll open it up to any questions.
What's the acronym stand for? GS, GA, it was like a couple pages back. GASB. Yes.
Oh, Governmental Accounting Standards Board. It's a standards we have to adhere to prepare the financial statements for governments.
In interacting with the town staff, are you working primarily just with finance department, or do you work with other department heads as well?
Primarily, it's going to be with the finance department, but we will go talk to other department managers, particularly within the utility department, as we do those special audit procedures. And, anything financial related. And so I'm assuming those different department managers will have some sort of interaction with finance. And so we may be talking with them as necessary.
Thank you.
Yeah, because a big thing will basically be just where the revenues are derived from. So if there's some cash collections at specific departments that are significant enough for our audit, we'll be probably going over those cash receipt processes there at that department. So it really kind of depends once we kind of get our plan together. But we do usually talk around, other departments throughout the audit. So
I'm sure Sherry probably told you this, but we were awarded a federal grant in the amount of $2 million from the Biden infrastructure. We haven't received it yet.
Yeah, so when I was alluding to 750, it really derives from when the monies were spent as to how it gets recorded.
I
So,
see.
yep.
yeah, and I believe Sherry had alerted me on that. So I think with the timing, so a lot of times, although it might be for expenditures you've already spent, and then they're awarding you for those expenditures, usually it's whenever that grant award date. So the date of that grant award is whenever you actually recognize it for kind of our CFA presentation, the actual federal expenditure schedule. So I think that date isn't going to be till after fiscal year 25. So it'll more than likely be on fiscal year 26 CFA. So next year, more than likely, it sounds like, well, there will be a single audit required. So
Right, if we get it.
Yeah.
We're hoping.
Call President Trump and hurry up.
Yeah, right.
I got him on speed dial. So
Got him on speed dial.
The question I was really surprised when I got here that the town was still, thank you, that the town still had cash in private business, got rid of that 30 years ago. No one has any cash on hand, don't accept cash payments, don't have petty cash. Everything is electronic basically now. And so I just curious, in your other work, are other towns cash free? Or is it typical that all towns in Arizona still have cash businesses on site, on premises?
It really depends. I know, I think especially during COVID, I think, everyone realized, wow, I can actually pay my utility bill just online, and so, which kind of just helps, the reduce the chances for fraud. I mean, the easiest way to, commit fraud is basically just, skim cash, right? I think it's probably best practice is to not, to not have much cash collection at all. And I have seen other governmental entities transition more to more electronic payments, whether it's credit card in person or just online payments.
So there are some out there that have gotten away from cash?
I haven't seen any that have totally away from cash, but I think, usually it's kind
Just
of,
using a Dropbox, for example, everybody uses Dropbox now rather than opening envelopes yourself, or uses Walmart. Walmart will accept cash, for example.
yeah, it really depends on the municipality, the size, and kind of the location. So, but.
Okay.
The age also would factor in. If you've got older people, they don't like to do the electronic thing. They still like to write checks, I would think.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever seen a government that's gone completely cash free. But yeah, we definitely, see different governments have more cash transactions and some have less cash transactions. Yeah.
Final questions or comments?
Just for what it's worth, the state still is required to take cashier's checks and money orders.
Yeah, but not
Actual currency.
Yeah.
Cash.
Okay.
Sherry has-
So one of the things that we had asked for as part of the scope was to look at the role of the audit committee. And as I had mentioned on Monday, I don't know how much value is being added with the way things are right now. And so I know that there was some comments of, do we keep the audit committee or not? And so I didn't know if that was a discussion you wanted to have, because this may be the last meeting before September of the council, and they will be starting on the audit very quickly.
Well, being the person behind that, before that, staff audited themselves, which is a complete total violation of internal controls I'd never seen anywhere else in my business career. And so the main driving force was to move the management and the thrust of the audit to the council, the way that business was my model, that there's an audit committee on every board of directors around. And the reason we kind of called audit committee because I was considering having different committees at that time, since kind of dropped that idea, especially since I wanted to get away from having minutes. But so I'm fine having the council as long as it's clearly understood that the auditors work for the council, and it is an audit of the management of the town, as their effectiveness in taking care of the town, which is our role, I think. Now, maybe if I'm wrong on that, you can correct me on that.
No, you're exactly right. So we report to governance, and that's within our engagement letter. At the end of the audit, we will issue what's called the governance communication. So we really report to governance, and in this case, it'd be the council. And we're auditing the town, which would include management of the town. So I think within our engagement letter, that's specified that's who we report to. So that could clear up some of that confusion.
So I have no trouble with not having an audit committee and just having the town council do it. I don't know if we need a.
Mayor, if you may, that is how it's done. As you kind of described, you might have noted some concerns when you first became mayor or a few years ago. But as the auditors indicated, the client really is not the staff and myself, it's the council. You have the fiduciary responsibility as the governing body, and you are the client, not the staff. All the other cities around, there might be some that have audit committees, it's not that unusual, but the more accepted norm is when the audit is underway, they come back, they report their findings, recommendations, and typically if there's any deficiencies and material weaknesses, they report that to the council. You are the client. We cannot stop what they're doing. They do what they have to do. They're independent, and that's the nature of these audits. And so if the council's leaning towards, and that's why we have this on here, not just as a presentation, but if the council was leaning towards perhaps not having an audit committee and just having the council itself be at a regular council meeting when they report back their findings, then what we'll do is we'll come back at a later date and we'll amend what created the audit committee to do away with that. If there's consensus on that tonight or direction, you can actually vote to do that tonight, the way the agenda is written. That could be your direction.
Was the audit committee formed prior to December 2nd of last year?
It was formed
Yeah.
2 years ago.
May of 23.
Thank you.
Well, I'll make the motion that we dissolve the audit committee and that the town council will hereafter function as the audit committee for the entire
I'll
town.
second that.
Perfect.
Discussion from council. Thoughts?
Good idea. Makes sense just to put it in a regular town council meeting.
Right.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Done.
Thank you. I believe that's all that we have unless you have other questions.
Well, we just like to welcome you. We've heard good things about you and of course, I'm just gonna make my own judgment, haven't been around as long as Tom, but
No one has.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
No.
Or the other Tom goes back to
Yeah. that's
25
true.
years.
Yes.
But I think the entire town, including our financial, is on a great upswing. Sherry has done marvelous things in the year that she's been here. It doesn't seem like that long, but we're very I'm gonna speak for myself. I'm very happy with the way that our finance is trucking along, as I am with most of every area of the town. So we look forward to a good audit and welcome you aboard and look forward to seeing you.
It's not always this hot here.
We know we're in good hands with the Detroiter.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you. Well, we appreciate the opportunity to work with you and we're really excited to work with the town. So thank you.
Yeah,
Great.
we're excited. Love the town of Cave Creek, whether it's Golf and Rancho Manana or, hitting some of these restaurants up here. So I'm always excited to, be able to work with a town that actually, I love visiting,
You
so,
golf here?
every once in a while I'll go golf Rancho Manana. It's only a course.
Well, you have to get a cowboy hat and come back at rodeo time.
I think I owe you some golf balls.
Anything else from staff? Council?
Or do they?
Want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Here you go. Thank you. Carry 7-0.